Now, I'm not saying that women can't disagree. Lord knows Carol and I have had our moments. But I've never seen anything quite like this. Susan Collins, a Republican senator, fixed it for the controversial Brett Kavanaugh to become a Supreme Court justice in the US in the face of credible evidence that he'd assaulted at least one girl at high school. Yes, ladies, 1 year on from those first allegations against Harvey Weinstein, the #MeToo backlash is in full swing. Donald Trump's openly working it to rally his base for next month's elections. His attack on Kavanaugh's accuser, Professor Blasey Ford, has been dubbed the patriarchal riposte to the movement that's been a global rallying point for women's anger against male privilege. I don't want men victimised for being men, apart from Nick, perhaps, but it saddens me that so many women have jumped on the Me Too backlash bandwagon quite unnecessarily. We've got Donald Trump for that. We don't need women for Trump or women for Kavanaugh piling in too. I don't want to say it, but women beware women. Why can't the sisterhood stand strong?
Let me start by saying I worry that Me Too is now being used as a political tool to, in some cases, intimidate men and to batter them with. The strength of the Me Too movement is that it has exposed the experiences of women who have been abused. I think the great weakness of it is that all a woman has to do now is to say that she has to accuse a man of assault, and she is believed. Now, the thing that got me about Christine Blasey Ford, when she gave her testimony at the Senate, it looked wholly sincere to me. But I don't know if it's true. No. But what happened was a lot of women went on her side. There were people protesting outside saying, you know, believe her, believe her, believe her. There was not a scrap of evidence to back up her claims. There was nothing that could have helped police bring a prosecution. There was nothing that could have got that case to court. And yet, what Christine Blasey Ford did, she cried, and her tears were her evidence, and a lot of America believed her. Now, this worries me, because, and you mentioned Susan Collins. Susan Collins she said she was backing Kavanaugh because of due process, because of the law. Now, the law says you have to have evidence before you destroy someone.
We're going to have a clip. Thank you for bringing her up, because we have a clip from Susan Collins in which she says the burden of proof is the more likely than not one, which was a new one for me, but let's hear from her.
The facts presented do not mean that Professor Ford was not sexually assaulted that night or at some other time, but they do lead me to conclude that the allegations failed to meet the more likely than not standard. Therefore, I do not believe that these charges can fairly prevent Judge Kavanaugh from serving on the court.
Listen, this is a whole grey area. Historic sexual abuse or crime is a real grey area. Melania Trump has also come in on this side to say women who accuse men of these things must provide evidence. Now, the problem is we all know that there is very rarely evidence of something like that.
And it's important to say that, of course, Judge Kavanaugh has refuted all those allegations and denied, so we just need to get that on the record. What I don't understand is, and let's just stay with the judge there, and let's just stay with his say that it never happened. The tone of what you were saying seems to imply that because of the importance, and it is important, that women feel empowered, that if they have been sexually abused, or because of the importance of that, maybe a few good men could get burnt.
No.
That's
I'd actually like to make something clear, which is this. What I'm talking about is the way that I feel women are aligning themselves against the Me Too movement, because the Me Too movement actually hasn't been terribly successful. It's still men who are in power, and women align themselves with power. So they are using male power to in a sense, shore up their own positions within the patriarchy. That, I'm afraid, is what happened.
You have to agree.
Meantime, one more thing on the Me Too. I do not want men to go crash and burn in flames, innocent men. I think all I want the Me Too movement to achieve is, if men have done wrong, to acknowledge it, apologise, and everybody move on. I don't want to see them destroyed.
Well, I think process is very important, and I think, you know, the danger in the Me Too movement is, as people who I hugely respect, like Margaret Atwood, have said, this kind of mob justice approach. But having said that, we know, as Rachel pointed out, that it's very difficult for women who have historically been the victims of these kind of assaults to prove it. Evidence, the process has not been on their side. And I think that this was difficult because it wasn't a criminal trial. There was a process.
Like it for Brett Kavanaugh.
It was very... But then you have President Trump saying that Kavanaugh was proved innocent, which is completely wrong. He wasn't proved innocent. It was just that she wasn't able to prove his guilt. And I just want to show you something from a woman we all know who's not exactly what you see when you close your eyes and think of the sisterhood. But let's hear her anyway.
I don't know why also that we have to look at every woman automatically as a victim if you're a woman, every man is a bad perpetrator. When did this happen that we line up according to political lines or according to gender lines?
Well, first of all, Harvey Weinstein, Carol, you said this has become very politicised, was a huge Democrat donor. So the idea that this is only going strategically after Republicans or people on the right isn't true. And secondly, in answer to Kellyanne Conway's point, women have always gone against the interests of other women. Look at the suffragettes movement,
but
all the Nazis.
look at the political thing. You a lot of people saying
Carol,
this is one thing. They're saying it's a political hit because the Democrats had lost the White House, they'd lost the Senate, and they'd lost the House, and they were about to lose the Supreme Court.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. In terms of whether or not Dr. Blasey Ford could provide evidence and proof, we'll never know because the FBI investigation was thwarted by the Republicans. There wasn't a thorough investigation done, so we'll never know. The other thing I just want to say is I agree to a certain point with you, Rachel, but I do think that what's happening with the whole Kavanaugh issue is a real backlash from women who are now deciding that they're not having this anymore. And if you look at what happened 27 years ago, when the Republicans made the same mistake with Clarence Thomas. The year after, it was the year of the women. Record numbers of women ran for office. And as a result, Bill Clinton won. I mean, though, he had his own issues. No. And I think what's going to happen now, what we're going to see in the midterms is we will see a blue wave, but then following on for 2020, we are going to see record numbers of women running for office to make sure that actually there are more women in the process deciding this stuff.
Because when you have in America very angry at the way the Kavanaugh thing has been carried out.
But the majority are not. Even evangelical women are turning to the Democrats. You've got to look at the research and the data, Carol.
Do you remember the girl standing outside the Senate when she had a plaque on? She said, "I'm protesting for my 12-year-old self." A lot of those women had really terrible issues to have to face, but none of that was Kavanaugh's fault, and yet he is going to suffer.
On the flip side, you saw conservative women coming out saying, even if these allegations are true, I don't care. What college boy hasn't done that to a girl at a party with a few drinks? So, Carol, you know, for everyone
but I think we are going to see record numbers of women running for office.
Catherine Deneuve said, and remember, she was roundly attacked for having a go at Me Too earlier this year. She says, we are being told what is proper to say and what we must stay silent about. And the women who refuse to fall into line are considered traitors and accomplices. As women, we don't recognise ourselves in this feminism that, beyond the denunciation of abuses of power, takes the face of a hatred of men and sexuality. And I think
but I don't believe that that's what it is.
That's what's happening.
Can we have a clip of some of the women that you mentioned, Rachel? These are women for Trump. I mean, wow. Let's have a look at them.
Just a few hours ago, the U.S. Senate confirmed Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the United States Supreme Court.
Number one, I don't think there are as many of them as we think there are, because he had to search hard to find her with her placard.
Catherine Deneuve's not one of Trump's women.
We will see in November, and I think we will see the Republicans are going to learn the hard way for this, 100%.